There is something that happens to our main character for the third time. She and her maid Agnes were killed again. And this is provided that the heroine decided to leave her past life and start a new one. In the last moments of her life, she hears someone's bitter voice. Thus she realized that God desired retribution. She was stuck in this cycle of death and rebirth. In this life, she will do everything to destroy their vile family. In the morning, the lady wakes up to someone calling her. It turned out to be that same maid named Agnes. Our heroine's name is Herencia Novelita. She is the beloved youngest daughter in the Duke's family. Agnes asked if Herencia wanted to take a bath or go straight to breakfast. At that moment, Herencia suddenly realized what was going on. In fact, she was reborn, and her fourth life began. But Agnes certainly didn't deserve to die in her opinion. The maid tells her that some letter has arrived. The girl remembers that the same thing happened in her past life, but she decides to ignore him, asking Agnes to help her get ready. She needs to become the most shameful villain in the Empire and destroy the family. While eating with a man, he decides to confess to her. He says that Herencia's face and figure are completely to his taste. The girl smiled, not understanding what this psycho was saying. The man suddenly shouted that he loved her. Of course, his behavior attracted the attention of others. But Herencia realized that this was a great chance to act. The heroine tells him that people like him are disgusting to her. And then she suddenly pours her drink on him. Moreover, commenting on her figure on the first meeting is an insult. Herencia grabbed a piece of cake and threw it in the man's face. The man got angry and asked what she was doing. The girl realized that now he would definitely hate her. She wanted to give the money right now to bruise his ego. But suddenly, the man, becoming very angry, swings his hand at her. This is something the main character did not expect at all. But some woman stands up for her, helping her avoid the blow. Tears flow from her eyes and she screams, calling the man a vile demon. As it turned out, this woman is the fiancé of this man who cheated on her. He ran after her, trying to explain everything to her, as if it would help. Herencia realized that it seemed that because of her, they would not have a wedding. The girl suddenly realized that she was now being accused by two parties. It's only to her advantage, and they can argue as much as they want. But suddenly, the woman took her hand, calling her her savior. She introduced herself as Victoria, and she and Stein were engaged. They had to get engaged because there was a deal between their families. But seeing Herencia's confidence, Victoria realized something. Stein turned out to be just a hopeless idiot. Victoria sincerely admires Herencia's confidence, but she pretended not to understand what they were talking about. One of the guests says that she has the gift of foresight. Someone even liked the way Herencia poured the drink on him. But this is not quite what the main character was trying to achieve. She had to say that she had urgent business and needed to go. One of the workers said that the chair was a little dirty. And now the girl understands that this is definitely her chance. Herencia asks how much it will cost. She felt ashamed that they would continue to use this chair. But in the end, the girl gave the worker a few gold coins. She decided to be an arrogant Novelita, confident that money solves everything. Herencia wonders why no one realizes she's a villain. Later, Agnes reported that they had decided to completely renovate that restaurant. Since nothing worked out yesterday, she will have to try harder today. She shouted at the cooks for bringing breakfast too late. Then she yelled at the seamstress that she had done a bad job. Then, Herencia got angry at the gardener for not trimming the tree properly. She will have to make enemies inside the palace, since it didn't work out outside. After all, if nothing is done, she will be left without enemies. Agnes asked the lady where she had gone so early. She replied that she was checking how their servants were working. Herencia said that because of their sloppy work, she yelled at them. Agnes saw that Herencia was writing something and decided to ask. Since there was a lot to do today, the lady decided to make a list. Agnes is surprised that Herencia is now making the list herself. The Duke's family includes the eldest son, Elbers, and Mr. Evan. But even though Herencia is strict, she always treats her servants with respect. Agnes thought that Herencia wanted to become the ruler of Novelit. She had just reached the right age, and the Duke would soon name an heir. Agnes used to think that Herencia didn't need this, but she was wrong. In their empire, even a woman can inherit the throne if she has the ability. Agnes started talking about it, but she misunderstood Herencia. For Agnes, Herencia's work was very hard. She thinks that the gentleman will be delighted with this news. Therefore, the maid asks the lady not to hide her sincere intentions. Herencia wondered how she could explain everything to her now. She asked Agnes to bring her breakfast while she lay down. The maid got it all wrong, and the others didn't even know. But Orencia didn't know that her father would find out about everything so quickly. The father agrees without any problems and suggests starting preparations tomorrow. He didn't even think that Orencia was interested in this, but she asked about the brothers. He said Elbers and Evan contacted him this morning, and, as it turned out, they were happy to give up the throne to her. The heir must overtake the family, but the heroine's goal is to destroy it. Horencia thinks that people will judge her if she becomes the heir. But this is exactly what she needs, and she will be able to destroy the family. That is why the girl agrees with her father, asking about lessons. The next day, Horencia was going to ride the horse herself. She was told that they could send another carriage if she didn't like this one. But Horencia just wants to get there on horseback, that's all. Everyone looks at her as if she were a reckless, spoiled child. Horencia is happy about this, and now it's time for her to destroy the family's reputation. She is sure that they will say that riding a horse through the city is uncultured. Horencia told Agnes that she could follow her in the carriage. The maid didn't have time to answer her before the lady had already left. Soon the prince was informed that Novelit's heir would come to him. He didn't even expect that they had an official heir. His butler heard that the heir had recently started lessons. He told the prince that he himself would soon see who would become the heir. While they were walking, they met a little girl along the way. It turned out to be Sophia, whom the prince knew. He told her that if he was a prince, there had to be a princess. While he was talking to her, he heard them being asked to move away. He turned around to see a horse rushing towards the two of them. The prince became very angry because the child was almost harmed. Horencia rode her horse right above them. At that moment, they both met eyes for a second. The prince reassures Sophia that everything is fine, but when he saw her smile, he realized that she was not hurt. He was about to confront the girl about what she had done. The prince did not expect that the heir would be a girl. However, he noted that she was an excellent horse rider. Sophia said that the princess came straight from heaven. Horencia acknowledged her beauty, but said that something else was important now. She tells the girl that she may have emotional wounds. Orencia extended her hand to the prince and introduced herself. She noticed that the guy was visibly frowning. Soon the first lesson began. The teacher explains a new topic. Horencia sat boredly at the table and looked around. She noticed a guy named Euclid, whom she had met earlier. The girl could not deny the fact that he was very handsome. He is much more handsome than the one she fell in love with in her past life. Euclid Gratellos is the sterile heir of the Gratellos family. The imperial inspector and the infamous Novelita family are very different. If Orencia had known that Euclid was so handsome, she would not have avoided places where she could meet him. But, one way or another, this is not its main goal. Recently, when she introduced herself to him, he simply turned around and left. The girl didn't like this at all. She considered him rude. It turns out that his first impression of her was not the most pleasant. Let's not forget why Horencia is sitting in these classes. She asked the teacher if he was bothered by the fact that the Empire had destroyed the country under the guise of an agreement. He explains that the Empire must protect countries that swear allegiance. Horencia concludes that she only protects those who pay her. She doubts that their empire can be called righteous. Horencia knows not to step on her teacher's shadow. One of the students said that studying history from this perspective is also useful. Finally, the teacher could not stand it any longer and left the classroom, announcing that the lesson was over. Horencia deliberately chose words that would upset the teacher. That guy decides to meet Horencia because he agrees with her opinion. Today's teacher ran away only because they disagreed with him. This guy offers the girl a ride home, but Euclid says that he can give her a lift himself, since she is getting there by carriage. He decided that it would be better than going alone. The heroine thought that he was so handsome, but his choice of words was stupid. But since he ignored her then, now she agrees. The others didn't even think that they could know each other. As Orencia thought, traveling by horse was more comfortable than by carriage. Time flies, which means that her life will soon end too. Euclid asked her if she wanted to tell him something, but the girl replied that it was he who should say something. The guy noted that she had been looking at him the entire lesson. Orencia didn't even realize she was staring at him like that. At first she apologized, but then she remembered that she was a villain. So after apologizing, she asked him to forget about it. She can't let anyone know that she likes the guy. She answered him honestly that he was simply very handsome. Horencia doesn't think it's bad to look at a beautiful person, but because he was so embarrassed, she felt ashamed. Euclid became even more embarrassed by her words, and even blushed. When Herencia returned home, Agnes told her that she couldn't disappear like that. She heard that Herencia had arrived in a carriage with Mr. Euclid. Agnes is worried that other young ladies will start bullying the girl. This is all because Euclid is popular throughout the empire. It is practically municipal property. Herencia became interested and asked Agnes to tell her more. She realized that she could be hounded for riding in the same carriage with him, but the maid replied that this was not what she meant. Agnes was simply afraid that rumors would spread quickly due to Euclid's popularity. Herencia, on the contrary, smiles and tells Agnes that she is smart. Euclid is a popular guy, worthy of the title of municipal property. This means that this is sacred territory that cannot be entered. Herencia will declare her sympathy for him, and then everyone will hate her. The main character is sure that everyone will go crazy from the news. She will be desperate to get him, and maybe his family will hate her too. The next morning, Herencia announced that she was going to get married. The brothers, who did not expect this, even choked on their food, and the father even noticeably turned pale from such a statement. The girl says that she is going to accept this man's proposal. Elbers concludes that she must have been dating someone before this moment. Herencia, including acting, said it was love at first sight, and when the mother asked who it was, she said Euclid Gretelos. Smiling, Herencia calls him the current duke and the future Grand Duke. The father cried out that there could be no talk of Euclid. Herencia knew he would say that, but it was too late. She says that she has already sent him a letter proposing marriage, and this letter must have already reached Euclid. Soon the butler informs Euclid that he has received a letter. He clarifies that the letter came from Lady Novelita. Euclid doesn't understand why she suddenly sent him a letter. Anyway, he asks Frederick to open it. He already knows perfectly well that Euclid never reads letters. Frederick firmly believes that this is definitely a love letter. He reads what is written there, and it is Herencia's proposal to marry her. Euclid didn't believe Frederick, but he said he wasn't joking. Frederick reads the letter again, word for word, but Euclid takes it from him. He reads the letter himself, not understanding what came over Herencia. Soon, Herencia came to Euclid's estate. He accepted her proposal, but still calls it the beginning of the war. Euclid asks Frederick if he really thinks this is a real proposal. For some reason, it seems to him that, judging by this letter, Herencia wants to fight. Euclid asks to wait for Herencia in the living room, promising to come soon. Frederick asked in shock if he really wanted to go out to her looking like that. Euclid objected that Herencia had come without warning, so he wouldn't have to dress up. Frederick notices that Euclid is indeed nervous. He didn't think that the gentleman would be so excited. Frederick thinks that Herencia really doesn't look like an ordinary princess. Euclid told her that it was quite rude to barge in without warning. Herencia asks the servants to leave them, but Euclid says the opposite. He thinks Herencia will be embarrassed, but she said she won't be. As she thought, Euclid would now refuse the offer. First, Herencia asks if he received her letter. Euclid asks her what she thinks his answer is. It was obvious to her that he would definitely refuse the offer, but suddenly he asked if she really thought so. He doesn't know why she decided that he would reject her. When Herencia said that they were seeing each other for the second time in their lives, he replied that she had sent the letter herself. Herencia tries to make an excuse that she wasn't even introduced to the palace. Euclid is already talking about their engagement, which can be announced at the banquet. Now Herencia understands that he accepts her proposal. The guy, smiling, replied that why not? Already at home, Herencia complains to Agnes that Euclid is going to think about an engagement. Agnes counters that their lady cannot be ignored. The girl wondered at what point everything went wrong. Rumors may spread that she was finally rejected and became obsessed with Euclid. But Herencia doesn't want to be talked about that way. She was unexpectedly informed that she had received a letter. It looks like this is a personal offer for Herencia. The heroine wondered who could have sent such a letter. Herencia didn't expect the girls to be happy to see her, although she was deliberately late and dressed too smartly. But even despite this, there is a good atmosphere here. One of the girls says that there are a lot of rumors about the lady, but Herencia behaved this way on purpose to make this happen. They began to remember that incident at the lecture. They don't like that there are no good teachers lately. Another girl said she was afraid to ride horses because of judgment, but Herencia broke this unspoken rule. In such a world, it is very difficult to be an example for everyone. They can have a snack and then go horse riding. Victoria says she got good revenge on Stein, and she admits that this is all only thanks to Herencia. The girls never ceased to admire the heroine's actions. But Herencia didn't want things to turn out this way. And suddenly, Victoria asked her if she could teach them. But the girl doesn't even understand what she's supposed to teach them. Euclid also wondered what was happening to him. The boy loses his composure around Herencia. Frederick says it's love, but Euclid only gets angry. He threatens Frederick to fire him from his job, and he immediately returned to his place. Of course, Euclid wanted to refuse, but at that moment, he simply couldn't. Remembering his behavior, he feels ashamed. He didn't even know that he had always been so unrestrained. He remembers the look on her face after he agreed. And Euclid wondered what Herencia could possibly be thinking about. But now Herencia decided that this time it was for real. She thought that she had no reason to refuse the girls. It was thanks to them that a wonderful thought came to her. She is going to teach them bad behavior and become villains. Then she will destroy their reputation as young ladies. And then everyone will find out that it was her doing. Herencia asks Agnes to bring paper and pen to write the invitations. When they arrived to her, the girl asked if they were ready. Since they have decided everything, Herencia suggests starting right now. Herencia is sure they will make great villains. She teaches them that the later they arrive, the more attention they attract. And they also have to be late for Herencia's classes. They started apologizing and asked how late they should arrive. But the point is not in the time, but in the fact that they generally come later. Herencia will lose respect if her reputation suffers due to tardiness. She asks the ladies if they remembered what was most important in the last lesson. She reminds them that they must take their gifts back. In addition, they need to return what was given to them. Even if they forget the other rules, these two will change their lives. Herencia calls her servant to act out a scene. She teaches ladies that they should refuse if they are asked to dance. The girls promise the main character to try their best. In recent days, Herencia had nothing to complain about with the servants. She had to do this to become a villain. So today, Herencia decided to scold them all day. She was surprised when she saw that the window was too clean. From some time on, the servants began to do their job well. And now, because of this, she has nothing to complain about at all. As a result, the girl decides to pick on Sebastian. She pointed him to the door, which creaked when moved. Herencia counters that this should have been fixed beforehand. Sebastian apologized, promising to do so after the guests. But Herencia says that such work requires a knowledgeable person. He was embarrassed, because the carpenter had to be called in advance. But Herencia doesn't care who he finds, as long as that someone understands it. There is a guild of the best carpenters who do work for noble families. The place has become a gathering place for incompetent craftsmen renowned for their connections. But this doesn't apply to Herencia, because she doesn't care about her reputation. She must have hurt Sebastian's pride, because he was looking for work with ordinary people. The man says that he just knows a good master. The girl even noticed that Sebastian smiled. He was nicknamed the Wooden Doll because he rarely shows emotion. Unexpectedly, Sebastian thanks the young lady. If he completes Herencia's task well, he will be recognized as an experienced master. Herencia thinks that now she will have to question the servants. After a while, she began to think that she hadn't felt so calm for a long time. Agnes says they need to pick out jewelry and a dress to present Herencia to the palace. Besides this, Herencia also has to find a partner. At Prince Barlos's birthday party, Herencia met her husband in her past life for the first time. Then the girl thought that this was love for the rest of her life. She believed that when they got married, she would become happy. This time, she is going to find the perfect partner. I want to find someone so that she doesn't even want to look at her ex-husband. Euclid told Frederick that he was going to Barlos's banquet. He thought that he was going there only because of Lady Herencia. The imperial family is now in the midst of a war for the throne. Prince Barlos and Prince Grassus are fighting for this place. In this chaos, Prince Gretelos, who remains neutral, is a mere reward. He must be under pressure from his family. That's why he's in a bad mood. Frederick reminds Euclid that he needs to find a partner. Later, Euclid is informed that he has received a letter. In appearance, this letter resembles a letter from Herencia. Euclid asked Frederick to open this letter, and when he read it, he said that now Euclid has a partner. A week later, Herencia wondered why Euclid still hadn't answered her. She thought she would have to break into his house again, but she doesn't want to because Euclid scares her a little. She is met by designer Andre when they arrive at the location. Agnes began to offer the lady different dresses. When Herencia showed the dress she wanted, Andre said he wasn't selling it. He and Agnes began to offer her another, also popular option. But Horencia insists that she must take this dress. Suddenly, Frederick approached her and introduced himself. Following him, Euclid appeared, displeased that Frederick had run ahead. The guy noticed that Horencia was also here, and their eyes met. If Horencia is going to wear this dress, then Euclid needs to find something suitable too. Horencia realized that this meant that Euclid had accepted her proposal, but when he said no, she thought he was rejecting her. But suddenly, he kissing her wrist, asks if she agrees to go with him to the banquet. Horencia was visibly embarrassed, thinking that this was not what Euclid wanted to say. Soon Euclid met with Horencia's father, who obviously did not trust him. Euclid had no idea that such a busy duke would be interested in his family. Later, Horencia herself comes down to them, shocking everyone with her appearance. The father asked in horror why her back was open. The girl replied that today she was the star of the evening, but her father asks her to go and change her clothes, because they might be spoken about badly. Horencia agreed that the dress was unusual, but it was beautiful. Euclid himself was slightly embarrassed by the heroine's appearance. Horencia's mother told her that she was as charming as expected, but Horencia might freeze, because spring evenings are still cold. The girl noted the tense relationship between her father and mother. Deciding not to complicate the situation, she and Euclid went to the banquet. Mother asks Horencia to be careful and have a good time. Lily, the empress, asked if they would really come to the banquet. Barlos, her son, replied that he had promised to come. The mother said that this day is very important for her daughter Selvarena. She asks Barlos to introduce her to Mr. Euclid today. They heard the guests whispering about something and looking somewhere. They didn't expect Euclid to come with a companion. Horencia noticed that everyone was looking at them, that they stood out, but for some reason, she noticed that no one was approaching them. The girl thought that I envied her because of Mr. Euclid. As a result, she began to drag him to different places to look at everything. Later, they were told that Her Majesty wanted to meet them. Horencia thought that the Empress had her eye on Euclid. Meeting Selvarena's gaze, Horencia suddenly thinks that she has seen her somewhere. Barlow thanks Euclid for coming to his party. They also thank him for the warm welcome, and they like everything. Horencia noted that Barlow seemed to like her. But for his sister, it seems to be quite the opposite, no. Lily asked who chose such a dress for Horencia. Horencia was glad that she decided to speak about it directly. Lily decided that Horencia had no idea what the rules were here. Horencia replied that she chose this dress herself. Since she is very hungry, she decides to start eating. The food at these banquets is simply delicious, but no one touches it. Ladies squeezed into corsets can hardly eat anything. And how will they feel watching Horencia eat? Euclid asked her if he could join her meal. They began to taste the meat, which turned out to be extremely tender. Barlos gets mad and asks to bring him a plate too. If he starts eating, the others will be able to openly condemn Horencia's antics. The guests envied Horencia because she could move freely in such a dress. Her students praised her appearance, noting that she was, as always, on top of her game. Today, Mary feels more confident than usual. The girls noticed that it looked like they were going to dance now. They left with their partners, and Mary was left alone. A man also approached her and asked her to dance. Mary almost agreed, but then she remembered Horencia's rules. She asked if he shouldn't introduce himself first. He said they could get to know each other later, but Mary asked what he was doing. The man indignantly asked if she was really pretending to be a poor person. He said that she stood in the corner alone and never found a partner. But Mary doesn't understand why she has to endure these insults. Horencia taught her to give what she received. Mary agrees that it is not she who is rude to everyone left and right. She told him that he looked pathetic when he stuck to women. He heard that Mary was throwing herself at all men, and now she was playing the brave one. In fact, he spoke to her out of pity. Everyone around heard their quarrel and began to discuss it. Mary thought that someone like her would never become like Horencia. At that very moment, Horencia approached her. She thought that this man was Mary's partner. Mary couldn't stand it and shouted that she didn't like such suitors. Horencia asks him how he dared to speak like that to the Count's daughter. When he looks closely at her, he recognizes her. Meanwhile, Selvarena wanted to talk to Euclid. She is perceptive and very knowledgeable about the affairs of high society. Euclid knows that the queen is trying to set her up with him. Before Selvarena could say anything, they heard a quarrel. Euclid leaves immediately, asking for forgiveness because his companion got into trouble. Selvarena is confident that Euclid is playing the role of a faithful partner, and this is definitely not what she expected to see. Horencia's meeting with her ex-husband was like a fairy tale. Then the man came up to her and asked her to dance. He was an aristocrat from a poor rural estate. Real family life turned out to be far from that fairy tale. Horencia became aggressive and cruel, and eventually destroyed everything. Her ex-husband yelled at her that his life was ruined. It's no wonder he hated her so much that he decided to kill her. Horencia was already prepared for the man to swing at her. But Euclid did not allow this to happen, standing between them. He asked seriously what this man was doing. He began to justify himself by saying that it was just a small quarrel. He introduces himself as Bran, telling where he lives. In response, Euclid told him that he remembered his name. After that, Horencia told him that she was fine. Mary apologized to her for getting her into this. This has never happened in the past, so there is no point in thinking about it. Remembering that she was a villain, Horencia began to criticize Mary because of her dress. She didn't like that there were too many bows on the dress. Horencia pointed out that people looked down on Mary. That should be enough to make Mary hate her. But she suddenly grabs a knife and starts cutting off all the bows. Horencia, horrified, asks what she is doing. But the other ladies said the dress looked better this way. Mary promises to thank Horencia for her help later. Then she asked Euclid if she wasn't terrible. She hoped her words had offended Mary. But Euclid replied that, on the contrary, it was very nice. If he has a partner, then no one will talk to him about marriage. The girl thought she should congratulate him for that. Euclid suggests capturing their attention again next time. It was dangerous to make such an expression, because Horencia was embarrassed. The Empress was angry for Euclid's family, and that everything turned out this way. The worried daughter entered the room when she heard some sounds. Her mother throws something at her, asking what she did. She told her daughter that she was just like her father, but Selvarena continues to smile, promising to sort everything out. Finally, the day came when Horencia didn't have to do anything. She has come to court, so now she must fulfill the duties of an heir. But nothing can raise the prestige of Novelita. She needs to find something that will help her make enemies. She will lend money to aristocrats and then torment them until they pay it back. But when she asked her father about it, he said it was impossible. He asks her to choose ordinary citizens to lend to. But the common people, no matter how much they are indignant, will not be able to harm their family. Her father explains to her that borrowing money is illegal. But, one way or another, he gives Horencia the initial capital. Horencia will make sure that the whole family is drawn into the scandal. But her father gave her only 500 silver coins, not even gold. The girl will not be able to start any business with this money. She doesn't know how to borrow money without having a penny. Agnes reported that a visitor had come to her with a proposal. The designer told Horencia, in admiration, that it was incredible. Every day, dozens of people come to them for dresses. The designer asks to be allowed to sell dresses under her name. Horencia suddenly realizes that this is what she needs. The main character asks how much he will pay her. He thought for a moment and said 3 silver ones. But Horencia wants 30% net profit. The man barely agrees to 25%. But in the end, he reluctantly agreed to 30. She shakes his hand and first says that they need to call the artist. Euclid saw some papers in the window, thinking about how Horencia had lost weight. Frederick noted that this was indeed flying paper. These sheets contained an advertisement for Horencia dresses. Horencia sat and counted how many coins she had accumulated. But this was still not enough, and she wanted to borrow money. She doesn't like that her father gave her so little money. She suddenly wondered what she could borrow from Euclid. So Horencia asked what his family's financial situation was. Agnes asked in horror what she was really going to borrow. But the maid explains to her that borrowing before the engagement is terrible. People might think that Horencia has a bad habit of spending money. Horencia thought that Euclid would ask her to stay away from her. But honestly, it doesn't sound that bad to her. A few days later, Horencia unexpectedly comes to Euclid. Frederick met her and asked what brought her here. The girl noticed that someone's carriage was already standing there. But since she doesn't care, she bursts into the palace. As expected from the Gratellis family, the place is spotlessly clean. Horencia began to climb to the next floor and looked for Euclid. At that moment, Euclid was talking with Selvarena, who had come to see him. They both interrupted their conversation when they heard a noise outside. Euclid apologizes that he needs to go away because he was waiting for this man. When he walked out into the corridor, he was not surprised to see Horencia. He smiled at her, allowing her to go inside and not stand there. Selvarena said they met again in an unexpected place. Horencia was confused because she didn't expect to see her here. Selvarina suggests drinking coffee, but Euclid would not advise drinking it. He doesn't want Herencia to dump it on him like she did on Mr. Stein. Selvarina sits silently and patiently listens to their argument. Suddenly, she said that she had to apologize to Herencia. She asked not to blame Euclid because it could not be avoided. Selvarina stated that she proposed to Mr. Euclid. Herencia is shocked and doesn't even know what to answer. Euclid offers a sincere apology from the bottom of his heart. He says he should have asked Herencia for her hand. Euclid declares to Selvarina that his heart belongs to Herencia. He asks her to reconsider her decision if she did it because of the Empress's orders. The struggle for the throne between the two princes has been going on for several years now. Without the intervention of the Gratellos family, things would have ended much more difficult. So Euclid uses Herencia to reject her offer. It turns out that the wedding has been discussed for a long time, and almost everyone knows it. Therefore, Herencia, pretending, asks Selvarina for forgiveness. She pretends that she cannot imagine life without Euclid. That's why she can't get Euclid back to her. In the end, Herencia will simply try to steal someone else's man. After Selvarina leaves, Euclid thanks Herencia for playing along. But Herencia wasn't playing, it was temporary sincerity. The main character noticed that Euclid was going for a smoke break with everyone. Deciding to get to the main point, Herencia asks him to lend her some money. Anything from coins to buildings will do for her. Euclid is confident that, although Herencia is noisy, she will not do anything bad. Since she had already helped him once, she asks him not to ask anything. Euclid concluded that Herencia was in danger. Selvarina knows that there are many ways to force someone into marriage, but if she does so, she will become an enemy of Herencia. Although it is Herencia who should be on her side, not Euclid. Today, Herencia's mom and dad went to the estate. This means that now the whole family is controlled by Herencia. While her father is away, she needs to sort out all her affairs. Servant Sebastian informs her that a guest has arrived. This man, kneeling, asks Herencia for help. He took her to the room where her brother was, whom they seem to have caught off guard. If he was just changing clothes, there are too many people here for that. But he said that everything was fine, and the maids still came running here. Herencia asked the maid if her brother had forced her to undress. Since this is unacceptable, Herencia orders everyone to undergo a re-examination. She asked the maids to get out of there and never come back. Herencia promises her brother that this will not happen again, and that she should have kept a better eye on the maids. He, quickly getting dressed, asked her to try harder. Herencia told him that she would assign him a male servant. Herencia knows that Elbers is often violent. She is familiar with his vile nature, but this is not uncommon in high society. She tells him that if he wants to satisfy his lower body, he should do it outside the palace. Herencia asked if he really needed to touch what belonged to Novelita. Euclid waited for Herencia. Noticing that she was already late, he thought something might have happened to her, and when he asked the maid where she was, she did not answer. She was afraid that Elbers might do something to her. Euclid thought that she needed money because of problems with her family. When her brother grabbed the vase, Herencia thought he was trying to show off his strength. He called her arrogant and was about to throw a vase at her. Herencia didn't want things to come to this. Euclid appears in time and protects her by hitting Elbers. She is surprised that Euclid appears at such moments. Euclid asked if she really needed money to escape from that idiot. Herencia explained to him in confusion that he had misunderstood everything. If Herencia wants, Euclid will pretend he didn't hear anything. He decides that he will lend her as much money as she needs. Then he suddenly dropped to one knee and took out a ring. He is good with a sword and has many connections. Euclid asks Herencia if she will marry him. Meanwhile, Herencia's mother said that she would not return to the capital. Since her husband said that the children were not her concern, there was no need for her to return. This estate is a bit far away, but it is well managed. The Duke asks to prepare for the estate, and while the lady is unwell, she will remain at the estate. She asked him if he would do what she asked him to do, but he replied that these were family matters, and he would sort it out himself. Herencia asks what kind of nonsense Euclid is talking so early in the morning. He is confident that now the Empress will not leave him alone so easily. At their last meeting, Herencia didn't feel like they were on bad terms. Euclid tried to find other candidates, but there were too many. Herencia asked if he really thought she was that kind, but Euclid thinks that she is a smart girl who will correctly evaluate losses and profits. He shows her an engagement contract instead of a wedding contract. Euclid never saw anyone get divorced after a marriage contract. but the engagement contract can be cancelled at any time. Perhaps getting engaged to him wouldn't be a bad idea. In the end, Herencia agrees, but they need to come to an agreement. Euclid must believe that they will fall madly in love with each other. The item suppliers think that Euclid has actually fallen in love with Herencia. They need to hide everything before the Duke arrives, otherwise he will go crazy. And then they noticed the carriage in which the Duke was leaving. They were scared when they saw Herencia's father coming out of it. Sebastian warned him that the estate was still a bit dirty. He also said that Euclid sends gifts to Herencia every day. The man orders Sebastian to bring Herencia here immediately. Meanwhile, Herencia was trying to get Euclid back in order. She tries to explain to him that he should look more dramatic. The girl also asks him to open his collar wider. They need to make everyone think that they are true lovers. And then Euclid asked her what she was doing. Herencia became embarrassed, unable to answer anything. Then, when he had done everything, he asked her if she liked it. The main character is noticeably embarrassed. She needs to cool down. When she opened the door, Frederick appeared on the threshold. He tells her that her father has come for her, and he is looking for her. At that very moment, Herencia slammed the door in front of him. She understands that now she urgently needs to come up with something. Herencia asks Euclid to close his eyes, because she feels awkward. She leaned towards him and pressed herself closer, leaving a kiss on his neck. At that very moment, Herencia's father flies into the office. He immediately notices them and evaluates their appearance. He said that Gretelos had chosen God knows who as his successor. Herencia, turning to her father, apologizes for her words. She told him to keep an eye on Elbers if he wanted to see his grandson. And then she asked if it was true that Evan had squandered all the money in the theater. The father indignantly asked how she dared to speak about her brothers like that. He was about to grab her hand to leave and go home with her, but Euclid stopped him, saying that it was time for him to go. When the Duke left, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. They hoped that His Majesty will not be cruel to Lady Herencia. Euclid said things have only gotten worse, but that's what Herencia needs. He wondered if this was how she wanted to take his side. And he did not know that the Duke was so unreasonable. As Euclid thought, he can't just leave it like that. Frederick asked when they would be released. Herencia asked why Euclid wouldn't let her go home, but he saw how cruel her family was to let her go. Herencia hates control in relationships and rumors may arise. Euclid says it will be better if they get engaged. Herencia became embarrassed and said that she didn't even have anything to wear, but she didn't have to worry about that, because her fiancé had already prepared everything. Soon the Empress was informed that she had left the estate early in the morning. She wondered if there was really something between Herencia and Euclid, or if it was just an act. There was a time when Lily was the crown princess. The crown prince was deeply in love with Lady Gretelos. Rumors were circulating that the current bride would be forgotten if he became emperor. The Empress understands that nothing has changed since then. An unworthy couple must be destroyed before their love takes root. She asks Burl to find a newspaper publishing house with an obedient publisher. Later, Agnes says that Euclid spent the previous night with Selverina. Herencia can't even believe what they've turned this into. Her father has placed a bunch of knights, and she can't get out. But no one said that Herencia was going to walk out the door. Frederick tells Euclid that this is a new publisher, little known. Euclid wondered what to do with Herencia, who was probably shocked by the article. But it seems that Herencia herself came to him. He told her that he had seen the news and was now asking what to do. Herencia suggests making a bigger scandal. Euclid says he also has a reporter friend. Overjoyed, Herencia decided that they would have some real meat. But both the assistants and Euclid were against this. Putting everything on display is not interesting. You need to leave room for imagination. This is how an article was published about the secret meeting between Herencia and Euclid. Selverina, who also saw the news, laughed. Then even more shocking news came out, eclipsing the previous ones. Herencia asks Agnes to stop reading and that she should bring a glass of water. She doesn't understand what this secret relationship is about. And when she and Euclid were chained to each other, the girl doesn't understand who writes these articles. Herencia decides to go all in and do as she planned from the very beginning. The other ladies admired the couple of Herencia and Euclid. One of these ladies was in love with Mr. Euclid. But Herencia is too beautiful, and they look good together. It would be a crime to interfere with their love. They were even interested in what they were talking about. Just a little bit more, and everyone around will believe in their love. As Herencia said, she is a wonderful actress. She asked if her offer of money was still valid. She asked for 5,000 gold pieces, and Euclid said that was modest. Herencia was surprised. because for commoners, this was a fortune. It's the least Euclid can do for his beloved. Soon they came to a place that was neither very pleasant nor very good. Herencia pointed her finger at Agnes towards the arena ahead. Their people put their lives on the line in gambling. Agnes told Herencia that they needed to get out of here quickly. One of the men started to follow them, and Herencia noticed him. He didn't seem to expect it to be her. On top of all this, Herencia called him by name. The main character guesses that he needs money. That's why she asked if he wanted her to borrow it. Later, Agnes asked how Herencia knew he was the son of a nobleman. They saw each other at the imperial ball, and he looks worse than he did a couple of months ago. People like him don't change with the snap of a finger. The arena is one of the few entertainments in the empire. At the same time, dirty money of aristocrats is circulating in this place. Agnes thought that the young lady had decided to continue the family business. The Duke asked Sebastian if all preparations were complete. It would be foolish for the great Novelita family to go bankrupt. All this time the family traded prisoners. But the war ended and everything changed. The emperor, who was using the Duke's money, finally turned his back on him. Every business he did ended in failure, and he had nowhere to run. As her father thought, Herencia does everything her own way. The Duke asks Sebastian not to let Herencia find out. While she is having love affairs, he asks him to contact Godor. Soon Godor was informed that the Novelet family had contacted them. He wondered what the fox needed this time. In just 1 week, Herencia had accumulated a ton of invitations. Tired, Herencia asks Agnes to sort them out herself for now, but the maid said that it would be better for her to read them herself. There was an invitation to a tea ceremony from the Empress. Soon Lady Herencia came to Euclid's palace again. Frederick showed her where to go, and she noticed that they seemed to have guests. Opening the door slightly, Herencia wanted to eavesdrop on the conversation. He says that even they can't just sit back and do nothing. When Herencia asked what was wrong, he said nothing. Frederick, meanwhile, orders the others to leave the premises. Finally, Euclid talks about a plan to escape from home. Even though Herencia told him he had misunderstood, he was still serious. If she really wants to escape, Euclid suggests that she stay here. Later, a carriage was brought. Euclid needed to go on business. Extending his hand to Herencia, he tells her that she will spend today with him. The guy assures the heroine that it will be beneficial from all sides. Scandals have erupted again, and on such a scale. Euclid notes that the Empress had never acted so actively. Maybe that's why she sent the proposal. Perhaps she called her to get her reaction to the article. Herencia can't watch the battle. She feels uneasy. Euclid said they could leave if she was uncomfortable. Madame Bovary approached them, not expecting to see Euclid here. She meets Herencia, and she thought that this was why Euclid brought her here. They say that Bovary can spread rumors throughout the capital in just 1 day. Herencia knows that this woman is quite cunning. Bovary apologizes to them for interrupting them. She decides to leave them, wishing them a good time. It's not that Herencia is happy with what's happening here. Euclid asked if she found him disgusting too, since he had invited her himself. But he brushes off the question, saying he shouldn't have asked it. He doesn't like to force people to stay where they are uncomfortable. After boarding the carriage, they set off for the Gratelos estate. Herencia asked him if he really wanted her to run away like this. Euclid will be happy to lend Herencia a carriage and assistance. Agnes muses that it is more like preparation for married life. The estate servant shows Herencia her new room. Herencia says he doesn't seem to know the rules very well. The servant apologized because usually the master himself gives orders. But a true servant must foresee what the master wants. Herencia can't wait to make new enemies. Frederick asks Euclid to take a look at the new article. It looks like the Empress is really trying to make a fuss. When they entered Herencia's room, they couldn't understand what was happening. Herencia tells the servants to bring her a warm towel and tea in the morning. Even if the soap is expensive, it should still be the best. But the headmaid told them to save on such expenses. Soon the headmaid herself appeared in this estate. She said that training the maids was her responsibility. Until Herencia is the Grand Duchess, this all concerns only her. And only after Herencia changes will it be a different conversation. Herencia eventually told her it was rude. Euclid can't leave it like that. He approaches the maid. To him, it sounded like a maid telling his bride to never become a Grand Duchess. He announces to the maid that she is free from today. Later, Herencia said that firing the maid was too much. It seemed to her that the head maid had been working here for a long time. During this time, she was able to appropriate some property from the estate. Euclid was reported several times, but the amounts turned out to be insignificant. Euclid had known her since he was little. Apparently, the maid became arrogant, which is why she got away with everything. But to Herencia, she seemed like an honest maid. Soon, Herencia was prepared for a meeting with the Empress. Agnes tells her that she simply has to win today. Euclid appears at the door, asking if he can come in. He remembers that Herencia is going to have tea today. Euclid hesitantly asked her not to go there today. He can't go with Herencia, so he invites her to stay. The girl understands that Euclid is worried about her as a partner, but she's really good at dealing with unpleasant people. Herencia asks Euclid to trust her and not to worry, but he asks her permission to accompany her to the carriage. The Empress reasons that one article can be replaced by others. Selvarina thinks she's using too many low-down moves. It seems the Empress has not yet realized how funny she looks from the outside. Such false glory has no real value. Later, they were informed that Herencia had arrived. Even when Herencia is doing nothing special, she radiates her own light. Soon Euclid met with Herencia's father. The man asked without further ado where his daughter was. Herencia has a meeting today, so it's unlikely that her father will be able to see her. But he angrily asks how Euclid can claim that he wants to be with her. He hisses angrily that he is taking his daughter back. But Euclid asked if he had any other concerns. Euclid also knows about Lord Elber's problems. He plans to handle Herencia's affairs himself. The tea party turned out to be too predictable and boring. The Empress continues to start senseless quarrels, but she has no idea what the princess is thinking. The Empress heard that Selvarina and Euclid had been exchanging letters recently. What color would suit Lady Herencia? What jewelry do women like? She sent a huge letter with various questions. Selvarina so easily allows a man to talk so easily about other women. The Empress tells her daughter that she will make a wonderful wife. Unexpectedly, the Empress's son appeared here, having come to see her. Barlow hopes he hasn't interrupted the pleasant conversation between them. Herencia noted the tense atmosphere. Barlow noted that Lady Herencia is getting prettier every day. He promises to love and cherish one woman in his life. The Empress wants to bring Selvarina together with Euclid, and Herencia with Barlow. Unexpectedly, Euclid appeared here, deciding to see Herencia on the way. He says he wanted to take his beloved back to the estate. Euclid asked Selvarina when they had actually last seen each other. To preserve Her Highness's food, an article with references will be required. When they got into the carriage, Herencia asked where Euclid came from. He had to arrange some things in order to meet with His Majesty. The Duke granted his request for an audience. Herencia told him it was a bad habit. Euclid noticed how she always told him that nothing would work out. He tells her that his fiancé is really a difficult person. Agnes asked Herencia if she would like a cup of tea. She noticed that Herencia didn't look very well today. She may be going through emotional difficulties because of the news. Suddenly, Herencia jumped up from her seat and ran to Euclid's office. She told him that she thought it was time to go home. The Duke asks Sebastian if he was able to find confirmation. The lady whom Elbers was pestering is a distant relative of Empress Lily. Security around Villa Gratolos has recently been increased, and Herencia is there. But the Duke doesn't understand why this girl is still with Euclid. He says that he must meet the Empress in person. That's why he asks Sebastian to prepare the carriage. It's time to admit that everything Herencia did to become a villain didn't work. She is only a nominal heir, so she doesn't know anything important about her family. But the Empress was not yet able to exercise real power. Instead of a complete collapse of her reputation, she gained fame. It's likely that the main character should change tactics. First of all, she needs to distance herself from Euclid. Euclid is good, sincere, honest, and kind. He is the kind of person she can't help but like. She can't let him get caught up in her fight. Frederick reported that Herencia had left after lunch, packing her things. Euclid reasons that his daughter-in-law can be so cold. Frederick worries that Euclid is taking on too much. He just can't understand why he has deviated so far from the main path. Euclid is worried that Herencia does not accept what he gives her. Novelita has not interfered in the affairs of the Colosseum for quite some time. Frederick asked whether Euclid was sad or relieved. The nobles compete to lure Novelit's maids to their place. Thanks to Herencia, the maids do their job perfectly. The maids who received the job offer refused. The new uniform that Herencia recently ordered has caused a sensation. Herencia reminds us that this form is not at all cheap. That is why everyone is so delighted and so careful with her. Herencia asks Anis to tell everyone that she will go to bed early. When the Duke returned, he asked what had happened while he was gone. Of course, he was told that Madame Herencia had returned. The Empress asked him what he was so excited about. She said that it was common for young people to do such things. The Duke is grateful to Her Majesty for her grace. The Empress noted that his daughter Herencia was quite sweet. The other day, she saw her next to Barlow at a tea party. She says that now she and the Duke are on the same plate. In the end, the Duke decided that it would be better this way. Sebastian reports that Herencia has already fallen asleep because she is tired. The Duke orders him to bring Herencia to him early in the morning. It will be useful for her to learn about the family business. It would be more beneficial for her to become a crown princess, rather than just the wife of a grand duke. Herencia thought her father would be unhappy with her leaving home. But surprisingly, today he is suspiciously kind. The man says it's time for Herencia to learn about the family business. He has to leave tomorrow, and it would be useful for Herencia to go with him. The city is a land blessed by the gods. But the blessing dried up with the declaration of one famous emperor. He said that people in this place live righteous lives. So, from now on, they will no longer arrest criminals. Thus, the crowd of criminals headed to the city. Agnes, horrified, asks if they really need to go to this place. They are met by the same guy, who does not believe that Duke Novelita himself is here. He noticed that the man had brought someone new with him. Herencia asked if he was waiting for a special offer to introduce himself. He introduces himself as Resil, a small businessman from the city. The beauty of the young lady stunned him. He is afraid that he was too rude. Herencia asks him to try not to let this happen again. Suddenly, Resil unexpectedly waves his hand, manifesting magic. Herencia didn't expect him to be a wizard. Turning around, Resil invites Herencia and the Duke to come with him. It is a great honor for him to receive such important guests in his home. Herencia thinks that for him this is all some kind of game, but he apparently thinks it will scare her. The main character asks Resil to take them there. Since these are very important guests, Resil asks to be shown to the guest room. Someone was following Herencia, and she must urgently report her activities to Euclid. Frederick was outraged that they were being treated so terribly. He doesn't believe they've come such a long way to be told this. Euclid asks him to stop and asks how Herencia is. Frederick hadn't found out anything yet, and had only heard that she had gone away on business. Euclid was a little wary because he didn't expect this. Frederick had heard that their family's finances had been in trouble lately. There were whispers that they were putting together the old team from Garota. They received a message from Blaze, who is undercover observing Herencia. Euclid is not thrilled to hear that Herencia is now in the city. Resil speculates that Herencia is currently dating Euclid. He asks which Mr. Euclid is in love with Herencia. And he adds that for him, you see, Euclid was more than just a friend, so he was curious about what Euclid was like with Herencia. Resil asks the Duke if he wants to return to business. As far as he knows, they can only supply goods. Since this is not the first time the Duke has done this is good news. It was not easy to find a broker as good as Novelita. They will definitely choose a product that is attractive in appearance. Herencia feels a sense of suspicion coming from this guy. It seems that Resil is the true head of the city. He spoke as if he were a friend of Euclid. Gratellos and Garota are a stranger mix than Gratellos and Novelita. Suddenly, they are informed that they have uninvited guests. Resil asks how they can allow someone to barge in here while he has important business. Meanwhile, Herencia hears that Euclid has arrived. The main character didn't expect that everything would turn out like this. Euclid says it all starts when Herencia raises the flag. Resil began to find fault with every word Euclid said. Resil is just playing the fool, as Euclid thinks. Herencia screams for them to get this over with already. Eventually, Euclid and Resil began to fight with swords. When they are finished, Herencia declares that victory is Euclid's. Resil noted that his skills are still impressive. But Euclid said that wasn't true, and he just never cared. Herencia still can't figure out whether they are enemies or friends. But Resil knows Euclid's weak spot. He immediately became enraged, threatening him. Herencia asked Euclid if they were going home. Euclid assures that he will pay 10 times more. So he suggests that she cancel Novelit's deal. Herencia, horrified, asks him what he is doing. Resil thought that Gratellos wanted into their business. But Euclid agreed, saying that this was indeed the case. The Duke is outraged, saying that this is unacceptable. He recalls that Gorod and Novelita were in the same boat for years. But Euclid said that it would be better to take several people into this boat. Resil asks Herencia what she thinks is the best thing for him to do. Gratellos is said to be very good at running a business. Last night, Euclid suggested staying because it was getting late. This is his permanent court, so Herencia can rest in peace. But the girl decided to refrain from his proposal. The Duke would rather sleep on the street than choose this. Nevertheless, Euclid suggested taking a look at least at the room. And finally, Herencia's father changed his mind. Agnes, who has woken up, asks to come into her room. She reports that Euclid has prepared clothes for Herencia. Agnes blames herself for not having prepared better for the trip. Herencia wondered how Euclid had managed to get from the capital to the city so quickly. Euclid is visited by a boy who asks if he got what he wanted. It turns out that Euclid can already use teleportation magic, but he doesn't. But he just doesn't want the tower to find him. He also asks the guy not to talk about him when he returns. He decides to ask Euclid why he hates the tower so much. He just doesn't need to draw any more attention to himself. But the old head of the tower is not ready to forget about Euclid. Euclid tells Herencia that she must now make a choice. Either she returns to the Gratellos estate of her own free will, or is kidnapped by force. But Herencia wants the option to return to the Novelita estate. Euclid doesn't want his bride to be in a dangerous place. She explains that Novelita was not exposed to any danger. It's good for Euclid, but the news is truly shocking. Herencia is missing something. They say this to make it easier. This means that she can safely go to the Novelita estate. Either way, Euclid insists that she return with him. Empress Lily can send a letter at any time. Euclid convinces her that Gratellos needs her. Upon his return, the Duke asks that Evan and Elbers be brought to him. Sebastian suspects that something happened because he returned alone. He orders them to go to the mansion and bring Elbers and Evan here. Sebastian decided that it was not his place to worry about what happened. Meanwhile, Reseal says he made a good decision. He asks everyone to pack their things, and they ask why. They say that if they need something in the capital, they can steal it. They've already stolen enough to promise that. But Reseal refused, because you don't joke around with guard dogs, although it was funny for him to watch their efforts. Mr. Elbers and Mr. Evan arrived soon after. Sebastian says it doesn't look like their father is in a good mood. He says that while they were gone, their father returned from the city. He means that he doesn't know why his father called them. When Elbers and Evan come to the Duke, he asks them to come closer. He says that Euclid started talking about canceling the deal. Evan asks if Gratellos has any reason to interfere with Novelith's business. Father suggests that Euclid originally seduced Herencia in order to take advantage of her. Euclid recently announced that he would launch an internal investigation into the gladiator arena. They hope that Euclidi will not close the gladiator arena. With the Emperor's current attitude, he may hand over the arena to Gratellos. The father asks his sons if it is time for them to start working. He doesn't know how much longer he can cover for the two of them. It is unlikely that Herencia will continue to clean up after them after taking over the family. Elbers thinks that Herencia will not provide enough content. In the end, he told his father that he would do whatever it took. This view is much more to the father's liking. He tells them to return to the estate today. Mrs. Herencia looks even more beautiful than in the portrait. Everyone noticed that she arrived in Gratellos' carriage. Other ladies remember that the newspaper published scandalous news. One of the girls threw the newspaper on the ground in fright. Herencia picked it up, saying it needed to be thrown in the trash. It's been a week since the head maid was fired from the Gratellos estate. She thought that everything was decided between them. But suddenly, Herencia wanted to meet. The woman thinks that Herencia wants to punish her for being rude. Being Gratellos' head maid isn't the most comfortable position. Without a mistress of the house, she was forced to take on more responsibility. But there were very few people who appreciated her efforts. One day she came running in panic when she heard that her mother had lost consciousness, but she was informed that her mother received help in time. The maid's treatment required even more money. As a result, she had to pay for her decisions. Now she wondered what Herencia would tell her. Everyone began to discuss the return of the maid Anne. But they are sure that Lady Herencia is different from other nobility. It is said that Anne's head maid burst into tears from her kindness. Herencia asks Agnes to go inside, even though they just came out. Agnes offers to hold her umbrella, but Herencia is just tired. The sun was bright and glorious today. Agnes wanted them to walk some more. The Emperor studiously ignored all news about Herencia. He orders Empress Lily to come to him. When she sits on her knees, he orders her to say his name. The woman, slightly confused, calls him Yofahan. The Emperor was pleased to hear his name again. He heard that the princess was currently undergoing some pretty serious tests. She has her flaws, but she always strives for the best. The Emperor says that Lily is too quick to defend her children. The Empress asks him what he is trying to say, and suddenly the Emperor declares that he wants to see Herencia. Soon, Herencia was sitting in class again, looking boredly at the board. In fact, she has no desire to become the head. She dozed off and then woke up abruptly. But the lesson was over. In her class was Caesar, the eldest son of Count Ramond. He asks if Herencia would like to have a cup of tea with him. Finding this suspicious, Herencia said she was busy, but she stopped when he said it was about money. Caesar heard that she had recently lent money to Mr. Artis. On the street, people noticed a luxurious carriage decorated with jewels. They don't know who it belongs to, because it doesn't have a coat of arms. Rysel approached those who condemned him, asking if they were jealous. He asked them if they wanted him to make their hair red. They were both very scared and immediately apologized to him. It seems that the people of the capital have no sense of humor at all. That's why Rysel wants to find someone with a sense of humor here. Rysel asks Blaise where Lady Herencia is now. Frederick comes to Euclid's office. When he comes in, he notices that he has fallen asleep. No matter how much he doesn't want it, he has to do it. He said that Blaise told them that they had arrived in the capital, and if Blaise is there, then Rysel is now in the capital. Caesar says he wants to buy land and build a large entertainment center. The Emperor has been fighting against such establishments lately. Those who remain in the slums will have to be evicted from their homes. Young elite members are increasingly showing interest in gladiatorial combat. Herencia eventually agrees to his proposal. Caesar said with admiration that Herencia was incredibly generous. He asked if she would like to show the plan to Mr. Euclid, but she refused, saying that Caesar could meet her at the Gratelos estate. The main character calmly says that she lives there. Euclid, meeting with Rysel, asks what is going on. He suddenly declares that he simply has nowhere to live. He heard that Lady Herencia also lived here. They still need to discuss working together. Turning to the butler, Rysel asks if he remembers him. Euclid angrily says that he should have requested a work meeting. Herencia appeared and asked what was going on. Euclid immediately approaches her and asks her to take her home. He whispers to her that if she doesn't take his arm, Rysel will. The girl had to agree, so they left together. Rysel asked the butler why he was standing, but it was the master's order. The next day has arrived, and Herencia is having breakfast on the balcony. It seems that Rysel really did sleep in the carriage. Agnes feels like this strange man is stalking Herencia. She asks her to be careful, as she heard that he is not the nicest person. But this is obvious, because the city is not a charitable organization. Herencia was surprised when she learned that Rysel was a black magician. They even use living people as ingredients. Black magic happened to the main character in her second or third life. Then, Herencia went through a long journey to learn about black magic. She wanted to know if her curse was related to black magic. She's not sure she'll be able to find a book about black magic in Gratelos' estate. Oddly enough, there are quite a lot of books here related to magic. Agnes reported that a young gentleman from the barony of Villainous had come to see her, but it seems that he came not to Herencia, but to Euclid. The main character became wary, not understanding what he needed. Frederick tells how the gentleman claims to be the second son of Baron Villainous. Then Euclid asked if there were any more leaflets. One of them said that they were ready to accept help. Herencia bursts into Euclid's office in a panic. Euclid, surprisingly calm, said that he had just wanted to call her. The man who arrived declares that he can finally repay the lady for her kindness. Herencia was surprised that he looked too good. Everything was drowning in gambling addiction, and eventually the money ran out. It was then that Lady Herencia generously lent him money. He came to his senses too late and returned to the arena. And there he saw those who dreamed of the same thing as he did. And then he realized that this could not go on any longer. He promised that he would help anyone who found themselves in such trouble. He's going to break this vicious cycle in the arena. He also promises that he will soon be able to repay Herencia's debt. Euclid asked how she managed to do all this without him. But the girl assures him that she did all this for a different reason. Herencia didn't want this and didn't think it would turn out this way. But as always, everything went wrong. Rysel is once again convinced of how uncomfortable it is to sleep in carriages. Blaise says they bought 2 hotels near the arena last night. But recently, Mr. Euclid ordered an investigation into what was happening in the arena. Blaise asks not to tell Rysel that he has a letter from Herencia in his hands. He just had a great idea on how to distract Euclid. Blaise says there was one customer in the pub who stayed there for quite a long time. He died and they already found him dead. Rysel asks him to just get rid of the body. And suddenly, Blaze mentions that they discovered traces of black magic. Blaze thought that Raisel wanted to meet Cheshire, so he called him. Time passes, and Empress Lily meets Alexander. She ran up to him and desperately threw herself into his arms. While the woman hugs him, she asks him to say her name. She reports that things are getting even more complicated. Alexander states that every question sounds plausible. Erencia from Novelet is really annoying the Empress. Raisel meets Erencia, wanting to accompany her. But Herencia suggests that he go to his father if he has nothing to do. Raisel has already seen the Duke, but Euclid is busy now. He simply begs Herencia to let him accompany her. But she already has a knight who has been ordered to accompany her. Herencia told him that she didn't need an escort in principle, and left. Soon they arrived on the outskirts of the capital, in the slums. Herencia told Agnes that if she was bored, she should count the lines on her palm. They were both distracted by something they saw near the window. Agnes said that all slums are like this, so there is no need to be upset. Herencia suddenly asked to stop the carriage because she wanted to get off here. She asks Agnes to take the bag of money and get out. The children who saw Irenci thought that there was a doll standing in front of them, but the boy asked if they had never seen dolls. One of the children wanted to touch Herencia's dress, but Agnes forbade it. But Herencia asks her to stop and just give them the money. For these kids, real money seemed like something unreal. Agnes believes that one should not give away money so thoughtlessly. Herencia said the thefts happen because they want more. But if you give money to everyone, the thefts will stop. And the main character wants to give more than enough. Later, Herencia told Euclid that she had released the knight to rest. She asks him to apologize for assigning a man to her without her knowledge. All this time, Herencia wondered what to do for her. Euclid didn't want to upset her. He asked about it a couple of days ago. His fiancée is so popular that he started to worry. He wants to be around all the time, but he can't. Herencia thinks he's just kidding when he says he's in love. Euclid also says that Herencia received a letter, although the main character knows that the letter has definitely already been opened. Euclid, on the contrary, replied that he had no idea what she was talking about. He guesses that someone simply forged the letter. Euclid promises to find out who dared to send such a letter to the lady. Herencia told him that she was not, in fact, a lady. It seemed like the rumors in the slums spread in just one day. Today, the girl won't be able to give away money just like that. Everything in life comes at a price, so they have to give up something valuable. Children began to give away their toys and were given money in return. One old woman even had to sacrifice her wand. Ultimately, people decide for themselves what to give. Agnes asked if they were really doing well. Herencia explained that they were taking what belonged to beggars.